there, welcome to week 2 of Learning Spelling in about 10 minutes a week. This is part 2. If this is the first time you're seeing me, go find part 1. It makes more sense. I explain the idea of our series here. But we are on part 2, and for those of you who are joining me for the second time, welcome back. Please remember that I've put all kinds of resources in our description, so you're going to find the worksheet that I'm going to work through on this in this class, and also some spelling levels and things like that, so that you can have a bit of a lesson for your kid. If you don't have a spelling, hey, here's one for you. Generally, I would suggest that this be a supplement for somebody who's having a hard time spelling, or for my new English speakers. This is going to give you some of the background of why we say what we say. It's basically a phonics class, but sometimes it's surprising. I know that when I was teaching my children to read, I had been reading since before I could remember, so I didn't remember a lot of the rules that I'm going to be teaching you and that I had to learn so that I could teach them. And that's what this is going to be, because I think a lot of us, especially native speakers, walk through our lives not realizing that we actually have some things that we follow, but we don't realize that we do because we have been speaking for so long. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and cover the next batch of spelling words. I did leave Malcolm Reynolds in his cage today because white shirts and parakeets, not a good combination. All right, I'll see you in a minute. All right, so just a reminder, this worksheet has 3 different styles that you can use if you want to follow along with me. I've got the blank one, if you've got someone who's learning to write or who is pretty good at writing. I've got the manuscript one, which has the first letter written and then they write the rest of it. And then I also have a cursive one. Just pick one and come along with me. Now, I also have some handy rules up here that are going to land on this page, and we'll come back to them, but I do want to show you. On this page, we're going to talk about Q. Q never stands alone. It always needs a U, and U is not considered a vowel. So you have Q, U, and then you have your vowel, and it creates a sound. Q by itself, a lot of you, especially those of you who are older, who have more grasp of the English language, are going to argue with me. And there's these particular words. Now, some of those words come from other countries, and we don't count those as English words. So that's not really what we're talking about here. But a lot of them are trademark words. So they're company names or their product names or stuff like that. We've done a lot of very interesting things with our words, with our letters, and with specifically the letter Q standing as a K sound. Those are valid, but we're not trying to teach you how to spell trademarks and words that are completely made up. We're trying to teach you how to learn how to spell the bulk of the English language as it sits today. So Q will always need a U. U is not a vowel, so you're going to need one. Z, never S, says Z at the beginning of a word. That one's going to be important. We're not actually going to cover Z today, but we're going to cover a couple of different spellings of the Z sound. So you need to remember Z, never S, says Z at the beginning of the word. X usually says X when found between vowels or at the end of a syllable. Think mix. And in words with a Greek origin or with a Greek inspiration, they're not all from that origin. I'm thinking of, we're going to use the word xylitol because it's a brand name of a fake sugar. But it has an inspirational word that came from Greek. So it's a Z sound. When you hear this X saying Z, it's coming from the Greek. All right, so here we go. I'm going to get my colors. The first one we're going to write is the M. So if you're writing along with me, come along. We're going to go kind of fast. M, N, P. Make sure that tail comes down below the line. Q and U. Q and U. Oh, by the way, I'm doing this in manuscript. Sorry, not doing it in cursive. Those of you who do cursive, do it in cursive. Then we have R, and we're going to have 2 different S's. And we're going to have T, and we're going to have V, and we're going to have W, and then 2 different X's. That's where we're starting. So let's get some sounds on this. An M, you should be saying to me, that says and it certainly does. And I'm just going to put an M there. The N says mm. Now P is a little like the G, where I get a lot of P, but I don't have as much confusion with the P as I do with the G. I usually have to pull people back to P instead of P. So on this one, I'm not going to put the AH, I'm just going to put the P. P. It's a P sound, it should pop. Now QU together says qua. So we're going to say qua. KW. Our R says R. S has two sounds. It says like snake, and I do usually put two S's to keep them seen, hissing. And it says Z. Remember I said about the Z. Then we have the T sound. And be careful with, especially your younger spellers. It's not ta, even though we did G-A-H so that we could make sure we got G and J. Make sure they're not saying ta, because otherwise they'll say t-op, and that's not the same word. So we want t, sharp. Then we have V, and V says v, and it should make your lips vibrate. It should tickle. And then we have W, and W is a tricky, tricky letter for people because we teach them the alphabet song, right? T-U-V-W-X-Y-Z. But W, the word W starts with a D. It doesn't start with a W sound. There are some schools of thought that will teach a child the sounds first before they learn the letters. And so if you've got itty-bitty ones, you can start pointing at this and going, W, 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 W. But they really do have a hard time because they say W and they think D. But that's not true. So just kind of be aware of that gotcha for you teachers out there. W is a tricky one. It says W. Then we have X, and there's two sounds of X. Like I said, we have X, and we have another Z. Now, if you look, we've actually got three different possible Z's. We've got this one, a Z sound, not Z's, Z sounds. Two, and then, of course, there's this one up here. Those Z sounds each have their own little magic, whether it's a rule or if it's an origin, that kind of a thing. And it just goes again to prove my point. You can't look at a kid and say, how exactly do you spell xylophone? How exactly do you spell, I'm trying to think of that, rise? They're not necessarily going to know right off the top of their head because it's spelled a little funky. And it's using a letter that might not be what they expect it to be. So do help them to learn how to code things so that they can know when they actually see rise that that S is saying the Z sound, so they can tell that apart. All right, how many minutes are we at? Oh, gotta hurry. All right, so now we're just going to get some words in here. I'm going to give you some. If you're doing this with me, take these words, that's great. But more, I'd like you to find some M words around your house. If you've got itty-bitty ones and you want to use map, that's fine. But if you've got great big ones and you want to use multisyllabic, hey, that's a pretty great word. All I'm saying is it doesn't have to be my words. Pick words at your level, wherever your student is. Make sure that you're using these in a way that makes it worth it. Okay? So I'm going to throw you a couple here. We've got map. That's for the younger ones. We've got map. Let's go ahead and break some syllables here. How about the word message? We've got message. Actually, I'm going to just do it this way. If you can find the syllables, that's awesome. Tell me about them. Next time we'll talk about syllables. And then how about we do money? Money. That's a good one. Now with N's, we'll do a short one. We'll do the word nest. Easy peasy. Let's do a little bit longer one, something for the older kids. How about navigate? Navigate. And then maybe one for the middle because we've got, this one doesn't look very hard, but that multi-letters phonogram in the middle of that, ooh, the little kids might not know yet. So this is noon. Then, of course, we're going to use pizza for the P, because pizza is an important thing in some people's lives. And then I think we should probably do panda, because pandas make me so happy. They just roll around and they fall off of things. It's just fantastic. Then we have, how about picture? Picture. Now, if you are older, you could do picturesque. And that would be a great word to learn. All right, now with QU, we have all kinds of things. For the younger ones, we might do queen. Oh, pardon my handwriting. I forgot what I was doing here. Queen. Ooh, I'm having a hard time with it. That should be a straight line if you're doing manuscript. Queen. And then we could do quaint. Oh, forgive me. I'm just not very good at it. Q-U-A-I-N-T. Trust me, younger people, you learn to write and then all of a sudden you can't stop doing what you're doing. And then how about quote? Quote's a fun one. We'll have to play with that someday because there's all kinds of spelling phonics rules in there. Okay, we've got R. We could do all kinds of stuff here. We could do the typical rat. Or maybe you're a little older and you want to do rabbit. That's a double. Maybe you want to do royal. And there's run and rest and all of those other ones. On the S, we're going to say the S sound, the absolute clear S sound. And we're going to use the word song. And how about summer? And how about, ooh, I don't know, sparse. I like this one because, again, it's got lots of phonics in here. We could do all kinds of things with it. And then we have this Z sound that an S makes. Now, it doesn't do this at the front usually. It usually does it somewhere within the sentence. So I'm going to give you a couple of options. We've got the word rose, like the flower, or as if you were to, rose up. Something rose up. We've got visor, which you'll notice is spelled completely differently, and yet that S is saying the Z sound. How about the word busy? Busy. Again, spelled completely differently. And then I think the last one I'm going to do is for the older kids. We've got phase. Now, whenever we're doing a second sound of a letter, we want to at least put a 2 over it and underline it. I like to underline and put a 2 both. There's a 2 over that S. There's a 2 over that S. There's a 2 over that S. If you've been watching my 1-minute videos, I don't always underline them because sometimes it makes it confusing. But when I'm handwriting, I always underline them because I'm pointing out, hey, this one here. Now, for those of you who are actually marking the first sounds as ones, don't underline it. Just put a 1. Okay? So then we got T. And for T, we have so many things. Let's go ahead and put tent. That's a very straight line phonetic word. If we do taste, that one's got a little bit of flavor in it. No pun intended. Maybe a little. Tree also has a bit of, it's a little bit more difficult. And then the last one is, don't forget that T shows up all over the place. So you could also have a T that's at the end of the word. Those of you doing cursive, make sure you practice T's that are in the middle because you've got to keep everything connected. Then we've got V, and V is all kinds of things. Let's go ahead and say there are a vast number of words that begin with V. For instance, victory. That's one for the older kids. How about vertical? Maybe you've got a grandfather and his name is Victor. Don't forget the names of people. We've got W. Remember, W says "wuh." So this is a really good place to put so many words. The first one is probably going to be water. Oop, pardon me. Water. And then how about something simple like wish? And then maybe wagon. Notice I changed how I made my W's. I consider them both correct. And everybody needs to know how to spell weird because it's a great word. You want to have some fun with it, go look up what it originally meant. It's kind of great. Then we have X. Mamas do that for them so that you make sure you find the right one because some of those are tricky. All right, now I've got a bunch of different things for X. We want the X sound because that's the first sound. So that actually doesn't usually happen at the front. This is why X is tricky for booksellers because they'll say X-ray. Well, X-ray is actually standing in for something. So I don't use X-ray at all. But I do use box and mix, stuff like that. X usually happens at the end of a word or at the end of a syllable. So we have box. We have extra, extra. If you're looking at your syllables, extra. See how it's at the end of a syllable? We'll talk more about syllables next week, but extra. How about text is in the middle there. Exit. And it says that x sound, it usually goes with, it's usually between, I don't know, between, because like, yeah, extra is not. But a lot of times it's between vowels. It's certainly a lot of times just after a vowel so that the vowel itself can shape the sound. So X, ax, that kind of thing. And then our last one is the Z sound. And I've got a couple here, but a couple of them are cheaters because they are brand names. So let's start with xylophone. Xylophone. That one is definitely a number 2 version of that X. Let's put a 2 over here. And then we've got, like I said, xylitol. It's a type of manufactured sugar. And then let's do, oh, well, xenon is one of the elements, so we'll do xenon. And when my daughter was little, there was a television show, Xenon. I can't remember, but she loved it. All right, now, if you've done this, put it with the other one because we're not done yet. Next week, we're going to talk about not just Y and X, although there's quite a few Ys and X's. We're also going to talk about syllables, and we're going to start looking at some words, how we would start coding. I'll see you next week.